another exciting review of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Right. Thank you so much for joining me on this review. So today we're going to be reviewing chapter 3 of part 2, which says, if you don't do this, you are headed for trouble. What is that one thing that can put you in trouble if you do not do? We're going to find out. And let's begin with this story that happened sometime in 1898. It is a tragic story, right? There was a county named Rockland County in New York, back then in 1898. And in this county, like in a town, a child had died. It was a tragic event, and on this particular day, the neighbors were preparing for the funeral of this child who had died, and one of those neighbors was named Jim Farley. So Jim Farley went to his barn where his horse was in order to get the horse to take him to the funeral. But this horse had not done exercise in a while. So as soon as he went over to the horse, let the horse out and all of that, the horse just kicked his leg playfully as if it wanted to exercise, and just kicked his heels in the air so high, and the legs of this horse hit Jim Farley and he died. Right. It was a very big blow on him. Right. So this man died. At the time that he died, he had 3 boys. He had a wife. So he left his wife, a widow, and 3 boys, and he only had a few $100s in insurance. Right. But his oldest boy was also named Jim. So that means the oldest boy was also called Jim Farley. Because there wasn't so much money at home, this boy went to work where they were making bricks. Was molding bricks, and he was doing all of this. But this boy had something that so many people did not have. He had the natural ability to make people like him. He had flair for people. He knew how to connect with people. And even though he did not have any formal education, by the time he was 46 years old, 4 colleges had honored him with degrees, and he had become the chairman of the Democratic National Committee and Postmaster General of the United States, just because he knew how to make people like him. He had what so many people did not have. So Dale Carnegie once interviewed him, to ask about the secret of his success. And this guy simply said, hard work, just like anybody would say, trying to be modest. And Dale Carnegie told him, please don't be funny. It is not hard work. And the guy said, okay, can you guess what the secret of my success is? And he said, well, I understand you can call 10,000 people by their first names. And Jim Farley said, no, you're actually wrong. I can call 50,000 people by their first names. This was the secret of his success. He knew how to call people by their first names. He made the effort to always remember the names of the people that he met. And make no mistake about it, this ability helped him, or was instrumental to how Franklin D. Roosevelt became the president of the United States of America, because he headed Roosevelt's campaign in 1932. Right. This guy, he knew how to just make people, he knew how to put a lasting impression, make a lasting impression on people. Don't forget that we're actually learning 6 ways to make people like you. And this is the 3rd one. Remember people's names. If you don't make the effort to remember, you will never remember. But if you make the effort to remember, this simple habit can open doors for you. It can make people take special interest in you. It can get you what other people cannot get naturally. Right. How did this guy do it? He said in the beginning, it was very simple. Anytime he met a new person, he would go the extra mile to not only ask for the person's name, as in the person's complete name. You would also get some facts about this person. You would ask about the person's family. Oh, what do you do? Where do you work? Maybe like their hobbies and things like that. And he will commit all of these facts to heart. And the next time he's meeting this person, it could be 1 year after, he would remember. And so he will ask, oh, what about your family? Oh, what about your girl that was about to enter university 1 year ago? Oh, what about your wife? Does she still like skating? Something like that. Because he had gathered facts about this person. Tell me, how would somebody remember so much details about you and you will not like the person? Right. Before John Franklin D. Roosevelt became the president of America, when Jim Farley was heading his campaign team, Jim Farley would go to different towns. He would go to different states in America. He would hop onto a train, and in 19 days, he would cover like 20 states and 12,000 miles. He would travel by buggy, by train, automobile, boat, and everything. He would go to different places. He would meet people. He would have breakfast, lunch, he would interact with them. And anytime he got back home, he would get the name of somebody, one of those that he had visited. And this person would in turn give him the names, maybe like his tour guide in that state, I guess. And this person would give him the names of all the people that he had met in that state. And he would write them personalized notes. He would call each one by name. He would say, Dear Bill, Dear Jane, Dear Michael, Dear Lydie, it was great meeting you today, blah, blah, blah. He would frame this letter and he would sign it, Jim. He did that to everybody. So our names are very, very important. Your name is important to you. People find their names to be very, very important. An average person is more interested in his or her own name than in all the other names on earth put together. And that is the truth. You can speak to the selfish nature of man, but it is the truth. Make the extra effort to remember somebody's name, and you have a special place in their heart, especially people that you are not so used to. Somebody that you met 2 years ago, and you're meeting the person 2 years after, and you still remember the person's name. You still remember a few facts about this person. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you misspell a person's name, somebody can make a big fuss out of it? Like, oh, my name is spelled wrongly. That is not my name. And things like that, right? There was a guy here that sent a very terrible rebuke in Paris when his name was wrongly spelled. And there's also the example of a guy here, right? Because we know that sometimes it is difficult to pronounce people's names, especially people that are not of the same tribe or country or culture with you. You may not easily pronounce their names, right? And so sometimes people will look for a shortcut. They will just call them by a nickname or just say, hi, hello, and things like that. They don't remember, right? But there was an incident that happened so many years ago. There was a guy who was called Nicodemus Papadoulos. This name was so difficult for so many people to call. So they would just call this guy by a simple nickname that he could remember and all of that, right? But there was a guy, Sid Levy. This Nicodemus Papadoulos was his customer. So most people would just call this guy, oh, Nick. Of course, that is easy to remember, right? But Sid Levy said that he made a special effort to say this guy's name over and over several times to himself. Nicodemus Papadoulos, Nicodemus Papadoulos. What's the right word now? How thoughtful is it of him to try to memorize somebody's name, Nicodemus Papadoulos, right? And then one particular afternoon, he went to Mr. Nicodemus and said, good afternoon, Mr. Nicodemus Papadoulos. This man, Nicodemus, was shocked. And for a while, he did not respond. He did not say any word, like for several minutes. He did not know what to say, like, you can say my full name. And by the time he opened his mouth to speak, tears were rolling down his cheeks. And he said, Mr. Levy, in all the 15 years I have been in this country, nobody has ever made the effort to call me by my right name. Nobody. The man did not give him money. He did not do anything so special. But for this Mr. Nicodemus, it was a special deed. These are some of the little things that make a difference in people's lives. What about Andrew Carnegie? We've talked about Andrew Carnegie so much. If you want to learn more about Andrew Carnegie, go and read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Right. There is so much that is said about Andrew Carnegie in that book. But do you know the secrets to Andrew Carnegie's success? Andrew Carnegie controlled wealth, riches. He was called the Steel King. Yet he himself knew little about the manufacture of steel. He had hundreds of people working for him who knew far more about steel than he did. Yet he was so successful in this steel business. And one of his secrets was because he knew how to handle people. That was what made him rich. Early in life, he had a flair for organization, for business, for leadership. And by the time he was 10, he discovered an outstanding importance people place on their names. And how did he discover this? As a child, as a boy in Scotland, there was a time he caught a rabbit. It was a mother rabbit. And he took this rabbit home. And before he knew it, this mother rabbit gave birth to little bunnies, baby rabbits here and there. And he did not have what to feed these bunnies with. And so he thought about it, and then he went to the neighborhood and gathered all the boys and girls in the neighborhood and told them to go and look for food for these bunnies to eat and their mother. So they went to look for clover and dandelions, to feed the rabbits. But what did he promise them? Why did these boys and girls decide to go on this errand? Because he promised them that if they should come back with what the rabbits was going to eat, he would name the bunnies, the baby rabbits, after these children. And it worked. They quickly went to look for food for the rabbits. Right. So when he got into business, he applied the same psychology because he thought that this plan worked like magic. He never forgot it. So many years later, he made millions by using the same psychology in business. For example, when he wanted to start selling steel rails in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania railroads, the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad then was called Mr. J. Edgar Thompson. So he built a huge railroad company, and guess what? He named it after Mr. Edgar Thompson. He called it Edgar Thompson Steel Works. So when this railroad in Pennsylvania was in need of steel, guess who they contacted? Guess who they bought from? Mr. Andrew Carnegie. Somebody built a company and named it after you. If you want supplies for that your business, your project, who would you go to? Psychology. He learned this as a boy, the importance that people place on their names. So stop toiling with people's names. This is one, rare fact that I have learned reading this book today. You just never know. There are some people that never get called by their names. People just brush over their names. Even when they say their names, they just say it casually, right? They don't say it with a smile. They don't say it with thoughtfulness and all of that. And that's not all. There was also a guy that was dragging business with Mr. Andrew Carnegie. His name was Pullman, George Pullman. They were in the same steel business and they were bidding for the same contracts. Both of them did not care. Like, I must get this, even if it means not making profit. Mr. Carnegie would not get it, said Pullman. Pullman would not get it, said Carnegie. And when they went to New York to go and bid for a business, Carnegie remembered the psychology of remembering people's names. And he called Mr. Pullman. He said, come, I have a deal. Don't you think that we're making a fool of ourselves? You will not get this contract. I may not get it either. Or maybe you get it at your own detriment. You slash your price so that you can win the contract and all of that. Why don't we merge? This guy at first was thinking a merge for what? I'm not interested and blah, blah, blah. And after a while, after listening to Andrew Carnegie, he said, okay, wait a minute. If we merge, what will this new company be called? And Andrew said it will be called the Pullman Palace Car Company. He was willing to name it after his competitor, and that was it. That was how they had a merger. And that company made history. Made them a lot of money. So the policy of remembering and honoring the names of his friends and business associates was one of the secrets of Andrew Carnegie's leadership, one of the secrets of his success. He was proud of the fact that he could call many of his factory workers by name. Somebody said the bigger a corporation grows or an organization, the colder the people get, especially the people who own it. They stop remembering people's names. They stop calling their employees by name. But then that means that they are forgetting an important fact of the organization, the people. The people make up the corporation. They make up the organization. The success of that organization depends on them. Andrew Carnegie said that none of his workers ever went on strike because he had a personal relationship with them. He took special interest in them, right? There are so many examples, right? Anytime you go to parties, as a Nigerian, for example, what happens? The musician starts calling your name, and then you start spraying. You are spraying. You are spraying. They keep hyping you. They are hyping you, and before you know it, you spend all the money that you went to the party with, and then you are even calling on your PA to bring more bundles of naira, and then you are spraying it just because they are calling your name. Yoruba people will say, Ori and who, as in your head is swelling. You are feeling so important that, look at the way it's calling my name. Not just your name. They are saying nice things about you. You know, they are saying how important you are, even though you may not be that rich, but they make you feel very important. And those musicians also know once they see people coming into parties and those who are well dressed, they know that, oh, this one will have money. They'll quickly send some of their boys, go and get the person's name. Go and ask for that man's name. When it's time to get on the dance floor, they start calling you. They call you. If you know the meaning of that, the importance, you will get on the dance floor. You will spend money. People will spend so much money to get their names entrenched in the sand of time so that their names will not be forgotten. You go to the museum, you see things that are named after people. Some of them paid for those things. Some people will pay artists. They would donate towards big projects so that those projects can be named after them because they don't want their names to die. There was a guy who paid his grandson $25,000 just for his grandson to bear his name because unfortunately he did not have a son. So he wanted his grandson to bear his name. He paid $25,000. People don't want their names to perish. And while they're on earth, they cherish it when you remember their names. Another good example is Franklin D. Roosevelt. When he was the president of America, he was paralyzed. He couldn't drive a normal car. So a car company, the Chrysler organization, made him this special car. They went to the White House to teach him how to drive. And he met the person that went to teach him, W.F. Chamberlain, and his mechanic, to feel very important. Anybody who came around, he would say, oh, I really like this car. He would mention the different parts of the car, the different features. This car can do this car can do that. Oh, Mr. Chamberlain, you did a great job. You did this. He would hype the man. He would make him feel important. He would point out the good works that he did. Right. And Mr. Chamberlain said, talking about his experience with the President Roosevelt, he said, I taught President Roosevelt how to handle a car with a lot of unusual gadgets. But he taught me a lot about the fine art of handling people. At a point, a mechanic was brought to the White House. The mechanic was a shy person who would prefer to work in the background. But the moment he came in contact with Mr. Roosevelt, the president, Mr. Roosevelt asked for his name. And by the time they were leaving, he called the mechanic by name and said, thank you very much. Called him by name, shook his hand. And when the mechanic got home, still sent him a personal note to say thank you. Tell me how you will not have a special place in that person's heart. We talked about Mr. Roosevelt, I think in chapter 2 of part 2, how he would call every maid, everybody working in the White House and beyond by their names, even those working for him, no matter how lowly they were. Right. He would send autographs to people and so many things. So making people important, making them feel good is an important task that you must take up. It's not going to be easy. A lot of people excuse it away to say, oh, I'm busy. I can't be remembering people's name. I cannot cram anybody's name. But we are told here that in politics, a politician understands that to recall a voter's name is statesmanship. To forget it is oblivion. And it is as important as it is in business, as well as in social contact. Remember people's name. Don't just say, oh, I'm busy. Are you busier than Franklin D. Roosevelt, who would remember people's names, right? It just shows whether you're interested in people or not. It shows the state of your heart towards them. The technique is simple. There's a guy that would remember people's name by asking. If you come in contact with him and he doesn't get your name, we say, sorry, what's your name? If it is a name that is not familiar with you, we say, how do you spell it? You know, it takes special interest in people. And when he's coming across you, he's able to say it. And just like we said, knowing people's names can open doors for you. There's this guy, anytime he goes to the canteen to get food, he will meet with this lady. This lady would frown, no smile, nothing. You notice that, he has noticed that for a while. You know, you just say, oh, I want sandwiches. And he would take him like another sandwich, and he would just weigh the sandwiches, weigh it, put 2 pieces of lettuce, put ham, and give it to the man. So this man has been noticing it. And the next time he went, he called this lady by name. Hello, Eunice, with a smile. How are you doing today? And just by that simple gesture, Eunice did not weigh the sandwich this time around. Instead of 2 pieces of lettuce, she put 3. She poured the chips and the ham until the plate was overflowing. You know, it was filled up. More than the portion that this man waited for. The power of calling people by their names, the power of giving them a smile, a compliment, making them feel important. Some people don't smile just because they are burdened with too many things. I mean, there's so much going on in life, right? But if you give them a smile, if you call them by their names, even if it's just their first names, it is fine. It shows that, oh, you're interested in them, that somebody is thinking about them. Somebody can painstakingly remember their names, and it goes a long way. So learn this and you will not get into trouble. All right. Thank you so much. That will be all. Before we go, let me read this last statement. It says, the name sets the individual apart. It makes him or her unique among all others. The information we're imparting or the request we are making takes on a special importance when we approach the situation with the name of the individual. From the waitress to the senior executive, the name will work magic as we deal with others. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like this video, share your comments with me, and please subscribe to this channel in case you are yet to subscribe. I remain Olaide Agbaje, also known as First Lady, and on this channel, I inspire you to live intentionally. We'll come again together tomorrow by God's grace as we review chapter 4 of part 2. Until then, be intentional. Bye.